Hello, and welcome back to Recap Stories. Today we are looking at the 2021 horror film, Antlers. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video. We hear a native woman speaking, talking about the plight the earth is in, and the spirit awakened because of it. We see shots of an isolated town in Oregon. Aiden, a young boy, is playing by the trains. He hears a strange noise and runs back to his father's truck. His father tells him it's nothing to worry about and to stay put. Frank Weaver heads back to work only to hear a frightening noise coming from within. We see him heading deeper inside a mine, lit only by the light from his flare. Frank appears to be involved with drug dealing along with his friend. Another sound is heard, frightening both men. His friend has a gun and the men both head off towards the noise. Shots are fired and the men are attacked by something in the darkness. Aiden hears the men's screams and goes to see his father. We meet Julia Meadows as she teaches her class about storytelling. She asks Lucas, the older brother of Aiden, if there are any stories or myths he would like to talk about. He is more interested in his drawing than talking. Lucas is walking home looking rather depressed and upset. He kills a skunk with a rock and brings it home. We see a door in his house all locked up. Julia is at the store staring down some bottles of booze and appears to be battling demons of her own. She's at her piano and is having a quick flashback to some kind of traumatic event. Her brother Paul arrives to ask her how her day went and she doesn't seem to be too happy. Something clearly happened to her. Lucas is in bed looking at an old photo of the family. He saws off the head of his sock puppet as he's clearly disturbed. We hear noises and loud banging coming from that locked door again. Julia is staying with her brother in their old family home. Back in class, she calls on Lucas to read his story. He flips through pages of drawings telling a creepy story about 3 bears. After a run-in with a bully, Lucas is in the nurse's office and he has scars all over his body. Julia tries calling his home and we see the same locked door again with someone banging from within. She takes Lucas for ice cream and asks about his family. Julia asks about his father and he leaves. Julia is at Lucas's house and when knocking, the door opens. We see something and hear more strange grunting. She's back home with her brother and apologizing for leaving, telling him she couldn't stay. We see Lucas cutting up a dead animal, bringing it to his father, who now resembles more beast than man. Julia, while playing piano, has another flashback to her father, who clearly abused her. She asks her brother about Lucas's father, and Paul tells her he tries, but CPS always says he's fit enough. Lucas is setting a trap for an animal, and he sees former Sheriff Warren Stokes standing over and looking terrified at the remains of another human. Julia rummages through Lucas's desk, finding a Bible, a book on traps, a book on dark spirits, and some disturbing drawings. She speaks to Principal Ellen Booth and says she'll say something next time she sees his father. Julia finds her brother speaking to Stokes, who tells him about the body he found. At the morgue, Paul and his deputy are told there are human teeth marks in the bone. The principal is at Lucas's home surveying the outside. We see Lucas carving some kind of effigy while in class. Ellen enters the home and this can't end well. It appears Lucas is carving a Wendigo, a creature of native folklore. Ellen is at the locked door as she hears Aiden crying. The stench of the room is just unbearable. She finds Aiden and is immediately attacked and killed by his father. His father screams and howls as antlers begin to protrude from his mouth. The police are at the mine and find a piece of an antler. They receive a missing persons call and leave. Lucas is wandering train tracks alone and hears a shriek. He's confronted by his school bully Clint, who is attacked by the Wendigo. He runs home where he finds the remains of his principal and that his father has escaped. Paul is with Julia and tells her Ellen's husband has called in a missing persons report, as she hasn't been home all day or returned any calls. Lucas is trying to cover up the blood and evidence of Ellen's murder. The police arrive looking for Lucas's father but leave as they have no warrant. Lucas is absolutely terrified. Julia is worried about Lucas as she knows something is going on. She heads to Lucas's home and finds Ellen's car, along with the rest of Ellen. The police are looking over the body and find a second body they believe to be Frank. It looks as if something burst out from within. Lucas arrives and Julia tries to comfort him. Julia and Paul take him to a hospital and the doctor notes he's been through mental and physical trauma. Julia wants to take him home and Paul says he isn't her responsibility. She says he has no one and he's her student. Lucas is having a flashback to his father and what he was going through. Julia and Paul bring some of Lucas's drawings and these leather-bound sacks they found to Stokes. Stokes asks if Lucas is native and they tell him no. He says that just can't be. Stokes shows him a book of the Wendigo and tells him this is what was in the mine. Paul scoffs at the notion, but Stokes insists the myth is true. He tells them the ancestors are angry. Paul gets a call about a body on the tracks. They find the body of the young boy Clint. They're at a loss for what's going on. Paul takes Julia back to the hospital where she picks up Lucas and brings him home. She's enjoying a fire with Lucas while the deputy is outside surveying the area. A strange noise is heard outside, startling him. Julia tells Lucas his father died and he says he's not dead. He said that was his old dad, who was sick and mean. Lucas tells her he'll come for him to take him to the mine with Aiden. Another shriek is heard, frightening Julia. His father has arrived. The deputy radios Paul, telling him something is here. He opens a shed with his gun drawn and finds Aiden hiding under some blankets. He's attacked by the Wendigo, thrusting its antlers through his body. Julia is looking for for a gun, but they're all locked. Paul arrives to find the body of his deputy. Julia heads to the window to see what's happening, and Lucas runs out of the room. The Wendigo attacks Paul, knocking him against the wall. It returns, busting through another wall and nearly killing him. Julia heads out in search of Paul and Lucas. She finds her brother, worse for wear, and hears the shriek out in the distance. She's heading to the mine because Lucas believes that's where Aiden is. Paul is hanging on by a thread, but he won't let Julia go alone. Julia arrives at the mine, paging for an ambulance for her brother. She heads in with the gun. Almost tripping over a box of flares, she heads further down the mine. She comes to an area riddled with animal corpses and finds Lucas and Aiden. Lucas tells her to go back, and she turns to find the Wendigo feasting on a bear. It's wearing the face of Lucas's father. She shoots it, but it knocks her down. She lights a flare, and it appears to be afraid of the fire. Just as it's about to get her, Lucas stabs it in the back. Julia turns the beast over and cuts out its heart. We hear Aiden screaming, and they turn to find the young boy changing. Julia grabs the knife, but Lucas says he'll be okay. He's just sick. She tells Lucas to look away as she proceeds to do what, unfortunately, needs to happen. Paul and Julia are at the lake with Lucas. He asks what they should do, and Julia says keep him. For now. Paul asks her if she'll be able to kill something she loves. Julia walks off with Lucas, and we see Paul coughing. He's become the next victim of the curse, and the film ends. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to see more like this, please subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of a new upload. Thank you for watching, and as always, do take care.